Everyone has a moment they replay at 3 a.m. The one where the floor didn't open up and swallow them whole, even though they begged it to. But what if that moment, the one that made you want to disappear, is actually the exact thing that could define you who you become? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to take the worst thing that ever happened to your reputation and turn it into the foundation of something unshakable. Stay with me, because the last thing I'm going to tell you is the part nobody talks about, and it changes everything. Public humiliation doesn't just embarrass you. It reaches inside your chest and pulls out the version of you that believes they were never really worthy in the first place. That's the one underneath the event, not the moment itself, the story you attach to it. Someone laughed at you in a meeting, or you failed publicly, or something private became everyone's entertainment. And suddenly the outside world confirmed the fear you'd been hiding for years, that you were never as capable, as respected, or as solid as you pretended to be. That's the real enemy, not the people who watched, the voice inside you that agreed with them. Here's the first thing you need to understand. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between physical danger and social rejection. When you are humiliated, your brain processes it the same way it would process being chased by a predator. The cortisol spike, the tunnel vision, the obsessive replay, those aren't signs of weakness. Those are ancient survival mechanisms doing exactly what they were designed to do. You were wired to care about your social standing because for thousands of years being cast out of the group meant death. So before you judge yourself for not getting over it, recognize that you're fighting biology, not just bad memories. But here's what nobody tells you about that biology. It has an expiration date if you work with it instead of against it. And the people who recovered the fastest from public shame, they didn't pretend it didn't happen. They did something far more counterintuitive, something that feels completely wrong in the moment. We'll get there, so wait for it. But first, you need to know why most people's recovery strategy makes everything worse. The instinct after public humiliation is to disappear, to go quiet, to avoid the space where it happened, to shrink until people forget. It feels like wisdom. It feels like protection, but what you are actually doing is teaching your brain that the threat is real and permanent, that the arena is dangerous, and that the only safe response is to retreat. Every day you stay invisible, the story calcifies. The humiliation stops being an event and starts being an identity. You stop being someone who had a bad moment and start being someone who is defined by it. And the people around you who honestly forgot about it far faster than you think now notice the absence more than they ever noticed the fall. The emotion running through all of this is shame, not the embarrassment, which is momentary and social. Shame is deeper. Shame says it's not that I did something wrong, it's that I am wrong. And shame, unlike guilt, doesn't motivate repair. It motivates hiding. Understanding this distinction is not a therapeutic nicety. It is the strategic key to your entire recovery, because once you know you're fighting shame and not just reputation, you stop trying to manage perception and start rebuilding identity. Those are two completely different battles, and only one of them you can actually win. So what does rebuilding identity look like in practice? It starts with what psychologists call narrative reframing. But forget the clinical language. What it actually means is this. You have to become the author of what happened, not the victim of it. Right now, the story belongs to whoever was watching. The moment you tell it first, tell it honestly, and tell it in your own terms, you take the pen back. This is why public figures who acknowledge their failures openly recover faster than those who deny or deflect. Not because people are forgiven, but because authorship signals strength, and strength is what erases the image of collapse. There's a reason the most respected people in almost every field have a very specific thing in common. And it's not that they never fell, it's something about how they stood back up that rewired how everyone around them interpreted the fall. We'll get to that in a moment, but before we do, you need to understand the one mistake that turns a recoverable situation into a permanent scar. That mistake is over-explaining. When people are in shame, they want to justify, contextualize, and elaborate. They want the world to understand the full picture so it will render a more favorable verdict. But here's what actually happens. Every explanation you offer keeps the event alive in the conversation. Every defense you mount reminds people there's something to defend. Silence paired with visible forward motion is a more powerful communication tool than any statement you could craft. The goal is not to win the argument about what happened. The goal is to make what happens next to so undeniable that what happened before becomes a footnote. Now, about that thing that most respected people do when they fall publicly. They return to the arena faster than anyone expects, and they return differently than they left. Not louder, not more armored, not performing confidence, but more specific, more grounded. Like someone who went through fire and came out knowing exactly what they are made of. That quality, that legible earned groundedness is more magnetic than anything you had before the humiliation. Because everyone in that room, everyone watching knows what it costs to show back up. And when you do it anyway, you stop being the person who failed and start being the person who showed them what resilience actually looks like in a body in real time. The practical architecture of your recovery has 3 phases. The first is internal. You process what happened without self-punishment. You separate the event from your identity. And you identify the one true thing you can be proud of, even from within the wreckage. There is always one. The second is relational. You re-engage with your closest circle, not to seek validation, but to practice being seen again in a low-stakes environment where trust already exists. Shame thrives in isolation. Connection is its only real antidote. The third is public. You re-enter the arena, intentionally and with a specific contribution, not to prove something, to do something. The shift from performing recovery to actually building something is the moment other people stop seeing the humiliation when they look at you. What most people miss is that this process has a hidden gift embedded in it. One that can only be unlocked by going all the way through and not around. When you survive public shame and rebuild on the other side, you develop what can only be called social immunity. The thing you fear the most has already happened. The opinion of the crowd has already done its worst. And you're still here. That realization, genuinely metabolized, not just intellectually understood, is a kind of freedom that people who've never been publicly tested never access. Your humiliation handled right becomes your most credible qualification. Here's what you know now that you didn't know before this video. Public humiliation is not an image problem. It is a shame problem disguised an image problem. And shame doesn't respond to better PR. It responds to identity reconstruction, to authorship, to re-entry, and to the specific kind of visible courage that can only come from someone who has something real to lose and shows up anyway. The people who recover fastest are not the ones who suffered less. They are the ones who understood earlier than everyone else that the only way out is through. And that through walked with intention, turns the worst moment of your public life into the origin story of your most powerful chapter. So you came here thinking this was about what other people think about you, but now you know the truth. It was always about what you think of yourself. And whether you were willing to fight for that story when it mattered most, that's the loop I opened at the beginning of this video. And this is where it closes. Not with a technique, not with a shortcut, but with the one thing that actually reveals a person after a fall. The decision made quietly and completely to remain.